All right, welcome to the Explainer. Look, if you're tuning in right now, it tells me one thing. You are finally ready to unplug from the mathematical matrix. Because for years, the academic establishment has basically been feeding you this highly sanitized, neatly packaged version of reality. They gave you rules, they gave you boundaries, they told you exactly what you could and definitely could not do with numbers. Well, not today. Today we are completely tearing up the textbook. We're going underground to look at the math they really didn't want you to see, the actual cheat codes to the universe.
Because everything we're doing today starts with just one, honestly, pretty dangerous question. What actually happens when you break the biggest rule in math? You know the rule I'm talking about. The one they literally hammered into your head since the very first day you learned what a square root was. It's the fundamental question that literally breaks our standard numerical reality, and frankly, I love it. Let's see how this all builds up.
Yes, we all remember it, right? You simply cannot take the square root of a negative number, Timmy. It is strictly against the rules. It's absolutely impossible. Seriously, we all had that clueless 6th grade teacher just repeating the ultimate lie that was drilled into us in middle school. But here's the reality. Mathematicians actually run into equations like x squared plus 1 equals 0 all the time, and you literally cannot solve that without taking the square root of negative 1. So what did they do? Well, if you ask the esteemed academic establishment, they're going to tell you something like, we define the imaginary unit denoted as I as the principal square root of negative 1, forming the foundational basis of the complex plane. Yeah, whatever, nerd. Let me just translate that whole thing for you. Mathematicians literally just made it up. Seriously, they hit a brick wall, they desperately needed a cheat code, so they just invented a brand new number out of thin air and called it I. Okay, let's dive into this and see how this one little invention completely rewrites the entire game. Okay, think of this explainer kind of like a video game. We are officially dropping into Level 1, the infinite I cycle. So our very first task here is just figuring out how this totally impossible, entirely made-up number actually behaves when it starts multiplying by itself. Because let me tell you, things get weird fast. But what's really wild is how simple this supposedly complex math actually is. Just watch what happens when we take powers of I. I to the first power is, well, just I. Multiply by I again, and I squared equals negative 1. I mean, that's the whole reason it was invented in the first place. Multiply by I again, and I cubed becomes negative I. Multiply just one more time, and negative 1 times negative 1 means I to the 4th power is exactly positive 1. And then it just loops right back to the start. For a concept that literally breaks reality, it basically just spins in the exact same tiny circle forever and ever. So here is the absolutely crucial takeaway. You are looking at the ultimate cheat code for bypassing astronomically high powers. Because the cycle repeats infinitely every 4 powers, you literally never actually have to do the math. To find any power of I, you just divide the exponent by 4 and look at the remainder. Got a remainder of 1? The answer is I. Remainder of 2? Negative 1. Remainder of 3? Negative I. No remainder at all? Boom, it's 1. Seriously, lock this rule in your brain right now. We're definitely going to need it for the boss battle later.
All right, moving right along to Level 2, Anatomy of a Frankenstein Number.
Now let's see what happens when we mix our shiny new imaginary tool with regular everyday numbers. Spoiler alert, we create a monster. The textbook purist will say, oh, a complex number is meticulously expressed in the standard form a plus bi, representing a harmonious blend of the real and imaginary domains. Right, sure, buddy. In reality, a complex number is basically just a Frankenstein number. We are violently mashing a completely normal real number, that's the a, together with an imaginary part, that's the bi, using a plus sign, like 3 plus 4i. They don't actually mix, they just kind of sit next to each other, looking totally weird. And honestly, this right here sets up a classic rookie trap. It is literally designed by textbook writers to make you fail. If you've got a complex number z, the real part is a. We call that re of z. But the imaginary part, m of z, that is just the real coefficient, b. It is absolutely not bi. If your teacher asks for the imaginary part of 3 plus 4i and you say 4i, they are going to fail you with a giant smirk on their face. The imaginary part is just 4. Do not include the I. Seriously, don't let the establishment win on a technicality. All right, we're leveling up again. Welcome to Level 3, Math with Weird Numbers. Now, you're probably sitting there thinking, okay, if these numbers are weird Frankenstein monsters, adding and multiplying them has to be a total nightmare, right? Actually, no. It's laughably easy. Let's look at how to handle these things out in the wild. Let's speedrun addition real quick. It's literally just grouping like terms.
If we add 3 plus 4i to negative 3 plus 8i, we just combine the real parts together and then the imaginary parts together. Notice how the positive 3 and the negative 3 just neatly assassinate each other? Poof, they vanish. We're just left with 4i plus 8i, which gives us a pure imaginary 12i. There's literally nothing to it.
And multiplying them? Just as easy. You just need one tiny little magic trick. You use the distributive law, so just FOIL it out exactly like you would in normal algebra. But here is the catch. When you multiply the 4i and the 8i, you get 32 times I squared. And what did we just learn back in level 1? I squared is negative 1. So that positive 32 suddenly just flips into a negative 32. Combine that with the negative 9 you got from multiplying the real parts, and boom, you get negative 41 plus 12i. Absolute magic.
Okay, time for level 4, the conjugate division hack.
Listen up, because this is where you acquire the single most powerful weapon in the entire game. Division with complex numbers sounds completely terrifying. Our stuffy mathematicians love to complicate it. To divide complex numbers, one must multiply the numerator and denominator by the complex conjugate, defined as a minus bi. Okay, what does that actually mean for us? It means we just change the plus sign to a minus sign. That's literally the whole shebang. That is the conjugate. And its true purpose? It is the ultimate underground math hack to just absolutely destroy fractions. When you multiply a complex number by its conjugate, the middle terms just cancel out, the I squared flips the sign, and it completely incinerates the I. It turns a Frankenstein number right back into a pure, safe, totally real number.
Let's actually see this weapon in action, shall we? Say we want to divide 3 plus 4i by negative 3 plus 8i. Now, leaving an I in the denominator, that is strictly illegal in math. So we multiply the top and the bottom by the conjugate of the bottom, which is negative 3 minus 8i. The top gets a little messy, sure, we have to FOIL that out. But look at the bottom. The I is totally incinerated, and the denominator magically collapses into the perfectly normal real number 73. You end up cleanly breaking the whole problem down into 23 over 73 minus 36i over 73. Hack successful.
All right, you've acquired all the skills. Now it's time to put them to the test. Level 5, complex boss battles. Oh no, just look at the absolute size of that exponent. I to the power of 1972? How on earth are we ever going to multiply something 1972 times before the clock runs out on the exam? We're completely doomed. Okay, I'm kidding, relax. Because remember, we have that level 1 cheat code. Watch how systematically we can dismantle this supposedly terrifying boss. We just take that giant 1972 and divide it right by 4. Grab a calculator or honestly just do it in your head. It goes in exactly 493 times. And what's the remainder? 0. Exactly 0. And as we already know, a remainder of 0 means it's the exact same as I to the 4th, or I to the 0, which simply equals 1. That massive, incredibly scary problem literally just equals 1. Boss defeated instantly. Honestly, it's pathetic. Let's find a real challenge.
Okay, but here is the true final boss. This monstrosity is pulled straight out of Chapter 1 from our source text. We need to rationalize the denominator of 5 divided by 5 minus the square root of 2 minus the square root of 3. A totally ridiculous fraction with double square roots. Now, there are no i's here, but remember, the whole conjugate hack was originally born from dealing with square roots in the first place. So can our underground weapon destroy this double root monstrosity? Oh yes. Yes, it can.
And here is the absolute maniacal genius of how we solve this. You literally just use that exact same conjugate hack twice in a row. First, you just group the bottom. Treat 5 minus root 2 as the first part, and root 3 is the second. Then, you multiply the top and bottom by the conjugate, 5 minus root 2 plus root 3. Boom! That completely obliterates the root 3. But wait, you're still left with a root 2 down in the denominator. So what do? You just reload, find the new conjugate, and fire again. 2 hits, and the denominator becomes perfectly, beautifully rational. The boss is utterly destroyed.
And boom, just like that, you have officially conquered the forbidden math. You took the completely impossible, totally made-up number I, exposed its infinite loop, mastered its weird Frankenstein anatomy, and weaponized its conjugate to just completely destroy the hardest fractions they could possibly throw at you. But honestly, it kind of leaves you wondering, doesn't it? If they lied to you about the square root of negative numbers being impossible, what other mathematical rules are just sitting out there waiting to be broken? Take these tools, stay curious, and question literally every rule you were ever taught. Catch you next time.